So about 3 hours ago, Cwicly put live their latest version, which is 1.3, and in that they include their Cwicly components. In today's video, what I want to do is convert some of my blocks that I've created using advanced custom fields over to Cwicly components, because I want to get more of an understanding of how the components works, because I haven't had enough time to actually play with them, and I think this is going to be a good demonstration of how they work for people that don't actually understand what they are, and it's also a bit of practice for me to get more familiar with them. So, for example, when I'm going ahead and creating a blog post currently, this here is a block that I've created using advanced custom fields. So that's the key points. Another block that I've created is for the pros and cons, where I list the pros in green boxes, and then under that I list cons in the red. So currently when I'm writing a blog post, to insert them, I do this. So I'd go over to here, and for the key points, I would search for my key points block and insert that. And then here I can click the pencil icon, and this takes me into the editing mode for my advanced custom fields block. So I could write a little bit about Cwicly here, and then I could write about their pricing, what I like, what I don't like, my verdict. I can give them a star rating. I can link to the software, and I can change the text here. So click here. So if I update this and we view this post and go down, so there's my key points, and you can see that's been output there. So that's the first block that we'll be converting into a Cwicly component. The next one is going to be for the pros and cons. The way that I do that currently is I search for pros and cons, I add that in there, and then I click the pencil, and then I go through here. So I write a little bit of an introduction, and then I have a repeater here from Advanced Custom Fields. So my header, so Pro 1, write about that, and then Pro 2, write about that. And then here for the cons, I would do con 1, write about that, and so on. Now if we update this and reload the front end and go down, you can see their output there like that. So that's going to be the second block that we're going to try and convert into a Cwicly component. Now before we get into that, you might be wondering, why would I want to go ahead and convert a block that's actually working on my website into a Cwicly component? To create a block using advanced custom fields is quite straightforward once you've done it once. So here under a plugin where I register all my blocks, if I go to the key points block and then I open up the PHP file, it's just using advanced custom fields functions, a bit of PHP, but the structure of the files here, once you've gone ahead and created one block, you can just duplicate this folder here, change the PHP, change the CSS, change a few things in here, but it's pretty much, once you've done it once, you can just duplicate it and do it very, very fast. But while it is fast, you still need to go and write your custom PHP here, write some CSS, and I'm not really doing anything very advanced with my blocks. And so if I can get that same functionality where I'm creating blocks but having to write PHP, I can get that same functionality by doing it here inside of the builder using Cwicly, and have access to my global CSS classes that I've created in Cwicly and be able to style everything using the Cwicly editor. I can just do things a lot faster in here. So this is a bit of trial and error today. I haven't quite done this, so let's see if we can actually do it. But I think long term, if everything's done in Cwicly using components instead of me custom coding blocks, I'm just going to be able to do things a lot faster, and it just makes a lot more sense. The more things I can do in the builder that I'm using, the faster I can maintain it as well. So let's have a go at doing this. So here I'm going to go ahead and remove these blocks. So let's go ahead and create our first component, starting with the key points block. So the way that you create a component is you design the component, so you build out the structure here, and then you can convert it into a component. So let's create the structure first. So having a look at the structure, there's a heading, then there's a div here, and then inside there we'd have a heading and some text, and that would just repeat down the page. So here, let's go ahead and add a div. We'll add that in there. And then inside here, let's go ahead and add a heading, and I'll call this key points. And let's make this a H2. And then under that, let's go ahead and add a div. So I'll add that in there. And this is going to be our about. And then inside there, let's insert our heading. And I'll just copy that text from there and paste that in there. Back here, let's go and copy that. And then under the heading, we want to go and insert some text, the paragraph, paste our text in there. Now, before we go ahead and do the other blocks here, so the good, the bad, pricing, and verdict, let's go ahead and add some CSS classes and styling. So here on this div, I'll call it key points. And then here, let's add a CSS class of key points, and we'll create that class. And then here, I'll call this key points main heading. And then for this, let's go ahead and call this key points point wrap. And then here for this heading, let's add this. So key points point heading. And then this will be key points point text. So now let's go ahead and style this. So back here for our point, with our global CSS class that we just created selected, let's go to the design tab. And for the background, I'm going to choose my sand color. And then let's go to some margin and padding. For the padding, I'm going to do size large for this. And then the rounded corners, I'll give this my size medium rounded corners. And then let's go to the layout. And this is going to be flex, column. And then let's add our row gap of size extra small. For our heading here, we definitely want to change that from a H1 to a H3. And for the font size, I'm going to make this my H4 font size. Just scale it down a little bit. So if we save and save, on the front end, it's looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and create the other boxes here. So there's the about. So let's right click and go duplicate. And this is going to be pricing. So from my ACF block, I'm just going to start copying details and pasting them into here. We're not going to worry about the text here because we're going to change that when we create the component. So I'll just leave that as it is for now. So here, let's go and duplicate. This is good. Copy that, paste that there. And then we'll duplicate that. It's going to be bad. Copy that, paste that there, and duplicate, copy, paste. And that will be verdict. So if we save this now, on the front end, we have something that looks pretty much exactly like the block we created using advanced custom fields. So with all of this done, let's go ahead and turn this into a component. So in Cwicly, let's go here and we can right click and then click create component. I'll call this key points and click create. And now that that's a component, you can see that everything that we were just editing has been collapsed into the one block for the component. And you can see it has this blue area where it's all in one. Now, before we go to the next step, just to show you what components are, let's go and add a new post. So I'll say new and post, and we'll call this test components. And then inside of our test post, let's add a component. So here, let's search through our components, and there it is there. So we'll click, and now it's added into our page, and we'll go update. So now we have our test post with our key points component, and then we also have this other post for the Cwicly review with the key points component in there. So the same component on two different posts. So if here inside of our Cwicly review, if we edit this text and say, this is the new introduction, and then get out of editing that component and save, if we come back to our second blog post that we created, the test components blog post, if we reload this here, the key points component on this page, the information updated as well. And that's obviously not what we want. We want to be able to take a component, add it to many pages and posts on our website, but have different information within the component. So let me show you how to do that. So let's go back here, and then we'll go to modifier, and then we'll click on to our paragraph here for our about text here. And if we get rid of that text, you can see that down here under the primary tab and component settings, we can add content. And if we click here, we can start creating fields. So I could go new, rich text, give it a name. So about text. I'm not going to worry about any of these other settings for now, but let's click connect. And now for this component, we created a new property that is a rich text field called about text. And whatever we write there is going to be output here in the content area for this here. And that allows us to have our component added in many places on our website, but have different information for each instance. For example, if I go back to our key points here, you can see now with our component, we have a property over here about text. You can write here and it will go over there. But what's really good about Cwicly components is you can edit live inside the editor. So here I can say, this is my intro for the key points component on my Cwicly review. And I can go update and save. But if I go back to my test component and I reload here, that didn't get output on the page here. But if I edit this post, and then for this instance, I write something else, this is the about for the test post, and click update. Now if I reload, this instance of the key point component has this text, and my Cwicly review has different text. And if I come in and edit this component, and I go to the about, and let's just say I just want to change the background color of this particular block, I could go design, and then for the background, I could make that a green color and update and save. And I've updated that background color for the component. So now if we reload the Cwicly review, that's updated there, but the text is different. And if I reload our test post, I've updated there, but the text is different. So let's go ahead and just undo that. And let's go ahead and finish off adding our properties for our component. So here, let's go and click on pricing. I'll get rid of that. And then under primary content, let's create a new field. So I'll say new rich text, and I'll call this pricing text and click connect. Now that's mapped there. Let's go to the good down here, and I'll get rid of that. And let's go content, add new rich text, good text, and click connect. That's mapped there. Another way you can do it as well, you can just click on the component and go modify, and then you can see all your properties here. So I could say new property, rich text. We could do bad text. And now that that's created, then you can click on the actual element inside your component and then click here to map it that way. So connect. There's a couple of different ways that you can do it. I've found from making this video, it's just easier to click where I want to do it, click content, and then create the field from there. So let's go rich text, verdict text, and go connect. Done. So update, update. So now let's click out of the component. So we're not modifying it anymore. We're customizing, which means we're editing this instance and the information within the component. So I'm just going to copy and paste the content from my block into here. So I'll paste that there. Pricing, copy, paste that, copy, paste, and then copy, paste, and then I will copy and paste. Let's save and save. And now our Cwicly review has that key points block all converted over to a component. So in the future, when I'm writing a review and I want to add that key points component in, so I can just go to components and then click to insert, and that's inserted our key points component. And then I can just customize it here. So I can go, maybe I'm reviewing Flying Press, a caching plugin. Flying Press is what I use now instead of WP Rocket. Pricing, good, bad, that, update, and if we reload, now that's output there. So that's our key points component. Now I think you get the point of how to create a component and how they work and why they're so useful. The reason that I want to do this next one is because I haven't quite worked out the best way to do it, and this might be something you need to take into account when you're trying to work out if you should make a component or a block. So for this particular one here, if we go and use the block, so I was to go under here and add my pros and cons block that I created using advanced custom fields, this has a repeater field set. So I can just come into here, add a new row. This is a pro, add a new row, pro, and the same with cons there. So as many times I click add row, that is going to be output on the front end. But with Cwicly components, I don't think it's possible to do that. If it is, definitely let me know below because I will definitely use it. But the way that I'm doing it now is the heading is separate, and then this text would be separate, and then the actual component would be the box here for a pro, and I would have another component for the cons. But yeah, definitely let me know if there's a way to make this all one component where this is the heading, that's the text, and then inside there, this could be like a repeater. I don't think that's possible. Let's go ahead and create that. So I have my heading there. Then after that, let's go ahead and add a paragraph. So write some text there. And then we start creating our component. So here I'm going to add a div. And then inside this div, let's add a heading. And the heading would be a H3. And then after that, let's go ahead and insert a paragraph. So write the paragraph there. And this would be our component for the pro. So here I'm going to rename this to pro. And then I'll add a new global CSS class and we'll call this pro. And then in here, the heading, let's create a new global CSS class. So pro heading. And then this, we will call it pro and we'll say text. And then let's go ahead and style this pro class. So I'll go to design. And then for the background color, I haven't registered it here, but I've got the hex code on my clipboard. And then let's go to margins and padding, and we'll give this the size large padding. And for the heading, just with how my website's set up, I have some margin on the top. So for this, we'll set it to 0. And for the pro, we'll also change the row gap. So let's go down. So flex direction column, and the row gap we'll do size small, size 2 extra small. And then lastly, we need to add some rounded corners, and that's going to be my size M. And then for this heading, let's scale it down just a little bit. So it is a H3, but I'm going to give it my H4 font size. Update and update. And now on the front end, we have that. So here, let's convert this to a component. So we'll right click and go create component, and I'll say pro, click create. And then let's create our properties. So I'll go modify and then click on the heading. And for this heading, I'll get rid of that, and we'll go content and then new field. And this is just going to be a text field. And here we'll call this pro heading and click connect. And then for the paragraph, we'll get rid of that, and we'll click on the content, and then we'll click on text, and we'll call this pro text and click connect and exit out of that. And then let's click out of our component. So now in the future, if we want to edit this, we can just click here and go Cwicly is great because, and then explain that in more detail. And then to add another one, we could just go here and click to insert that. So now that's at the bottom. Or once we've got one in there, we could just go and duplicate that and then change the text. So here, and also it does that, change the text there. So yeah, we do have to duplicate that component, but if there is a way to make this all just one with a repeater, definitely let me know. So the last component we'll create is the cons. So it's going to be exactly the same as the pro, but with a different background color. So what we can do is we can go into modifier. So now we're editing, if we click into here, we're editing inside the component, and we could just copy here and then get out of that and then paste. And now that we've got the different elements for our component copied from the pro component, we just need to change this to say con. So here we would update this to say con, but we need to update all the CSS classes. So that one, and that one. And ideally, we don't delete this and then create a CSS class for con and then have to go and change the margin padding because it's all the same. So we really just want to clone this and then change the background color if we can. So if we click on the plus sign, where the pro class is, if we go over to here, so copy styles, and then let's get rid of that and then create our con class. So I'll go con and press enter. Now, if we go back into the global class manager where con is, if we go over, we can click paste styles and then command V, and now it's over there. So all we need to do is change the background color. So I'll go design, background, and then click here. And I have the hex code saved, and we'll press enter. So again, we managed to copy and paste all the different properties. All we need to do is change the background color. Another way that you can do it, so for this heading, the pro heading, so we set the font size and we have our margin top of 0. If we go to our pro heading and hover on here, we can get this and just copy that and then remove that and then create our con underscore heading CSS class. And then here we can hover on this class and we can just paste that over the top. And now that gets all of that and puts it and maps it into the fields here. So you can see that's being mapped there for the font size and then also for our margin top 0. And then for our text, with our class selected, if we hover on this, I can see that there's no CSS here. So we haven't actually set anything for this CSS class. And what I mean by that is if you go and add a background color, so just say we add a background color here to this CSS class, if I hover on here, you can see that background color has been added there. So this matches what's in the UI for Cwicly. Here, we could do margin top 100 pixels. And then if we go into design and then margin padding, the margin top here is set to 100 pixels. And so that's why when I hovered on here and I just saw this, I knew we didn't need to go and add any CSS. But I will get rid of that and we'll just add our con underscore text CSS class just to make it nice and neat, even though there's nothing set for that. So we've got our con block there and created. So let's right click and go create component and we'll call this con and press enter. And then let's click to modify our component. And then on the heading, we'll go to primary and component settings. And of course, we copied this from the pro block. It's just saying it's not found. Let's get rid of that and add a new one. And this is going to just be text. And we'll call this con heading and say connect. And then for here, let's go content and we'll add more text. And this is going to be con text and press connect. And now that is all done. So if we get out of modifying the component, so here, there's our component. Let's go ahead and write con1, write a bit of text there. And then we could just duplicate that. And down here, we can write con2 and write some text there. Update, update. So finally, the front end, key points, and then the pros and cons. And I guess just to keep this a little bit easier to follow when I'm writing the longer blog posts, what I might do is I just wrap all of this in a div. So I just go here, wrap in a div, and I might call this pros and cons. And then I would just drag everything inside there like this. So pros and cons components inside. And so that way, when I am writing the longer blog post, I can click collapse all up here. So this is open all, close all. And so it's all nice and condensed in there. So two different components there. The first one was pretty straightforward. Pros and cons. It's maybe not as clean as the block because everything could be done within the one block, where here I have multiple blocks and some components here. But again, I didn't have to custom code anything using PHP, open up my editor and stuff like that. I could do everything in the builder, which is what I'm trying to do as much as I possibly can. Again, I have access to all the global CSS classes that I create in Cwicly, and I can easily just edit styling from within the builder here. Again, just changing the background color. Maybe the pro here, I think that the background color is too strong. I could dial it down here. I don't have to go and open up my code editor and stuff like that. But with that said, I haven't really played around with components any more than this. Again, it was only released a few hours ago, 3 hours ago. So hopefully this gives you an idea of when you might want to use them, how they work, and if you're not using Cwicly, some of the stuff that Cwicly has been working on behind the scenes. If you like this video and you aren't using Cwicly, I'd really appreciate it if you were to purchase using my affiliate link if you did want to give it a go. Other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video.